Hello, everybody, and welcome to my series for the Wild Woman class. You are maybe taking my class, or maybe you're seeing this just because you've run across it on YouTube. Either way, this is going to show you how to make my version of what I'm calling a wild woman right now. If you're taking the class, there's a little more to the story than that. So we're doing a lot of work in the meditation class around senses, body scans, and bringing those meditation sessions, and the information that we gleaned from those forward into our Wild Woman doll. I'll try to explain that as much as I can for those of you who aren't part of the class. You're welcome to join my class at another time if it doesn't make sense. Okay, so for today, let's get started. I'm gonna show you what I've sent you in the bag and get started on putting together the bits for the body. So if you've signed up for my class, you've gotten a bag of materials, which I will show you in a minute. And part of your job was to pick up a couple of sticks or some groups of sticks. I typically do just two. We're going to use those as the basis for the body. So you've gathered those and make them clean. If they have any dirt on them or anything, make sure they're clean. You've gathered some extra material like an old t-shirt, maybe some material to use to fluff up your wild woman, and some bits and baubles that were important to you, maybe old earrings or necklaces or little bits of rock from your backyard or notes that you've written down as part of the meditation process that we've done. So that's what I'm assuming everybody has on hand. And then we'll get started with all of that. Okay, so I'm going to shift over to my different camera view so you can see from above. All right, so this is an example of the bag that I've sent you. So if you're in my class, you have a piece of some sort of material that is the outside material. I sent you some fleece material that is going to be kind of a semi-finishing sort of material for our person, and I'll talk more about that. You've gotten a face that I've sent you that I bought from another artist named Lynn Belisle. I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. I've sent you a couple pieces of crinoline. Might be a little hard to see this, but here is the less fancy one. Maybe if I fold it over, you can see it better. And then here's the slightly more fancy one, right? That's going to be for underneath the dress of sorts that we're going to make. You've received something like this. Oops, it's a little dirty. Another extra piece of cloth that's pretty velvety. And you've gotten where's my ribbon? A ribbon. So this is the one that I saved for myself. Okay. Finally, I've sent you the stuff for the back of the head, which we'll talk about more later. Right now, we don't have to worry about that. At this point, what we need to have is put all these things to the side, and we need to have your two sticks. For the purposes of this video, I've made my sticks shorter, but you're gonna let's do them this way. Well, actually, these could probably work. So this stick is approximately, we're at about 15 inches on this long one here. And on the shorter one, we're on at about 10 inches. I kind of like this shorter one because when you put it, these are going to be the arms. And when you put it on, it almost looks like it's, going, oh, which makes it kind of cool. So how do we put this together? If you haven't already, turn on your glue gun. That's going to be an important component of this. And what I have done is I've taken some material, t-shirt material, and I've turned it into strips. This part doesn't have to be fancy or glamorous. All of this is on the inside part, okay? Now, if you have some from the meditation, some seeds that you want to bring to this process, this is the time that you start doing those seeds. You start implementing those. So in this instance, you could do something even on the sticks, right? So I have my lovely Prismacolor marker. You don't have to be this fancy. But let's say that I have something like I want to have the heart on the inside, right? And so I create a little bit of a heart. Maybe I want to have some words of encouragement for myself because this process is intended for you to bring forth resiliency statements or things that you want to foster more in yourself. And maybe I want to move in my world with more compassion. And so you can write that directly on here if you want. So part of the layers of the seeds are things that you're going to know about that are important for you, but that maybe nobody else sees. I've done some of that on the strips too here. So we did this in class when we were working on the seeds. And again, compassion is a theme for me this year. So I've written it on the material as well, the t-shirt material. Okay. So any of that stuff, you might have some sort of rock, like this is a piece of turquoise. You might want to glue a rock inside of there. Whatever is part of what you want to bring forward, that's on the innermost part, the part that you only know about yourself or that doesn't need to be seen by other people. I'm bringing my glue gun over. It's been warming up over here for a bit, so it's got some dangles. And where are my other glue sticks? Here we go. I think from my own experience that it can be really helpful to grab the end of your t-shirt material. Let's just pop a little bit of glue on there to hold the t-shirt material down. We're going to use this like weaving. And I didn't say this earlier, but if you are gunning, if you can put your glue gun on the low heat setting, that's great. If you can't, then use something like these scissors. I think you just saw me. I put glue down and then I held this down with the tip of my scissors instead of my finger because you will definitely burn yourself and give yourself a good blister if you haven't held it down with something else, like if you touch it with your fingers. So this is the beginning here, and I'm just going to let this set up for just a minute. I might put a little more glue in there. In my experience with these and the way that I've kind of figured out how to do them for myself, the stabilization of this part has been pretty important because without stabilization here, the rest of it can kind of go a little funky. So we've got the t-shirt material that we're going to use to create the strength and wrap it around sort of like an ojo, if you guys have ever done those. And we've glued a little bit and we've put innermost words or phrases or symbols. And we've got our t-shirt material with the same symbols or whatever if you want. Now this isn't a necessary step. It's just if you feel like you've brought something forward from the meditations that you want on the very inside. So for me, I like to ball up my t-shirt material. So I'm just kind of making it a little easier to use, just like using a ball of yarn, right? So it's a little bit easier. And all we're going to do is an over, under, around, through kind of thing. This does not have to be pretty. This really is to put stability in place. And you want to crisscross it around, hold it around as much as you can, going in and out, back and forth, right? This is just to stabilize this and give it a good base. One of the reasons I like the t-shirt material is because you can put a little bit of pull on it. It's got some elasticity to it, and it can help hold this in a tighter manner. And so we're just going to follow this around, twisting and turning. Doesn't have to be perfect, as I said. A little meditative in and of itself. And I guess if you want, as you're doing this, kind of hold your intention in mind, your intention for this wild woman or this what do I want to bring forth into this world woman? I don't even know how you might say that differently. It's kind of long. At some stages, I'll stop and kind of see, let's check the wiggliness. Okay, and you might want to then, if it's a little wiggly still, shove some glue gun in there. I go through a lot of glue sticks. Hopefully you have that ability to do that too. But I find if you fill up those inner parts, those little holes that are still in there, it gives it a little more stability. All right, so let's finish with this here. Now, one of the things you might notice, and I'm going to kind of show you, there's a little bit of a hump on one side, right, where they crisscross over. Well, actually, this is not the hump side. This is the hump side where you can see it sticks out a little bit more on this side here, a little flatter here. So you're going to have to decide for yourself, what is the front? What is the back? I typically go with the crisscross part where it sticks out more. So this side is the part sticking out more. I typically see that as the front for me. That's for two reasons. I think from my aesthetic, I like how it sort of looks like a chest area. I don't know how well you can see it translate here, but it just sort of has that shape of the body that I would think would have a chest. The part that I consider back, which you don't have a crisscross bar over here, that'll lay flatter against the wall. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to do hang this with fishing wire, fishing line, so that you can put it up on the wall and hang it up. And so that back part, that flatter part, gives you a better space to have that happen. Okay, so we're going to leave this at this point. So as you might be able to tell, if we're making a person, this person, especially if this bump, and it's pretty big, it's got a pretty good space here of just nothingness. I like to build this area up a little bit. So we're going to look at the possible chest area, and then this area right here that would be considered the trunk. And part of our meditations, we need to build up a little bit. And again, if you have anything that you want to go in here, like let's say here's an old earring that I have that's really cute. If you want something in the innermost part, right? Something that in the meditations you pulled out of and you want to foster or support or keep, then definitely put those things in here. I'm going to just symbolically, to save time, I'm going to put grounding on here. Okay. And then I'm going to take my old t-shirt. It's all kind of a cut up t-shirt here. And I'm going to cut a decent size swatch to see about making more of a trunk here. So I'm going to fold this up. Again, this does not have to be glamorous. This is us building up. And again, if there's anything that you would want to go more specifically in the trunk, write on it, draw on it, anything that you'd like, or using a material that's symbolic in some way and brings forth what we pulled out in our meditation, then this is the time to do it. And so I'm going to kind of affix this right here, where it's pretty much in alignment with where the chest is. And then it starts to go down into what might be the entirety of the body. We're going to double check this again. And again, I want you to start trusting your own instincts on this. Let your aesthetic come through, because you might want this to have a little bit of a wider hip. You might want it to be a little more generous in the material. I like there to be a bunch of material in here. I like a generous kind of space for my person, maybe because that's sort of the body that I have and that I kind of like to perpetuate. And so as you're seeing, I'm working this in with the t-shirt material we've already created. And the goal here really is just to get it on, again, just like we did with the sticks at the beginning. You want to get it on there and have it be solidly in there. If you want to add some glue, that's great. If you don't want to add some glue, that's great. We have a finishing process that will cover all of this, so you don't have to worry about it. We're going to do this as the buildup, then we're going to have a cover over it, and then we're going to put the materials that are intended to be the clothing in whatever way you want. So at this point, again, double check with your aesthetic. How is it feeling? How is it looking for you? So I'm kind of happy with this. I might actually, yeah, I think I'm kind of happy with that. And we're just going to go with that as it is. So I'm just going to follow, putting this on here again, using up, I only have a little bit left, but using up all of the t-shirt material that I had, covering any gaps. And for this, so this is my back now. It's straighter, as you can see. This has more of a lip. I don't know how well that translates. Let me see if I can get it better. There we go. Translate. So this is like the chest, the neck, the arm, the neck. And so I'm going to try to put this on the back and finish it off. I'm going to finish this with just a little bit of glue gun. Right. So we're going to put some in there just to hold it nice and tight. Again, I don't want to put my finger on that, so I'm going to use something else to smush it down and make sure it's nice and tight on there. I'll let that dry for just a minute. Okay, so there is the inside parts of your wild woman. Okay, so going back into what we talked about at first, get some of this off of here, scooch this one to the side a little bit. I'm going to bring back from the bag of stuff that I sent you. You have this material that is a fleece material. So we're going to use this. This is going to be our finishing piece to cover all these parts. I like to cover a little bit up in the neck and the body all the way down to where you want it to end. Actually, I'm going to pull that little one off of there so it doesn't get in the way. Okay. This is not 100% process. What I typically like to do is have enough material that I can cover, leaving hands right at the ends, but that I could cover the stick. I'm not a fan of seeing the stick, so that's my intention here. You also start to cover the top neck part and maybe at least the top part, not the whole part of the trunk. So we're going to focus mostly on this part with the first cut, okay? Again, we're not being exact. I'm using this as a bit of a measure. I'm going to cut enough on here that I think will cover over the arms and then some. So I've got a little bit of the arms for measurement. Okay. So going back to this is my front that I've determined to be my front. I want it to be more finished on the front. This is a little too long at this point because I can't see the hands. I'm a fan of the hands. So we're going to cut off a bit here. Trust yourself. Use your own aesthetic sense for how much you do or don't want. And so now we have little bits that show up. So I'm going to start, I think, there's different ways I've done this. I think I want to start with it being tacked down a little bit here. So I'm going to pop this up a minute. And this is the point at which, if you had anything from the meditations that you wanted to support in the arms, in how you engage in the world, thinking symbolically of the arms, and how you want to act or pass on or whatever in the world, those go on somewhere here, right? It could be underneath if you don't want really anybody else to really be aware of it, or it could be on top of here too. So then I like to just, again, going back to my glue gun, I like to then tack this on so that it's going to stay really well, putting a line of glue here. And then we just fold this over. I don't typically use something to hold this down at this point because the fleece is thick enough that it doesn't let the heat burn you. So I've got to hold it on just for a minute or two. Let it cool off enough that it completes its stickiness. And so this far, going back to the front, this is kind of what you're going to have. I'm noticing the sun's shifting, so I'm going to close this blind here real quick. All right, now we can see this a little bit better. So this is what it's going to look like now. Now you have a couple options here. I think this is just slightly too long because I want this part to fold over more, but it's a little bit too long to do that. So I'm going to cut some of this off. Again, this is just the way that I've kind of figured out how I like to do this. If you've got another way, that is absolutely fine as well. And so we're going to glue gun again. I'm going to put this down here because this will hold this next layer in. If we don't have a good base for some of this, it will get a little lost as we move forward. And so as you can see, we just need to fold this over, and now you have the arms done, okay? So I'm gonna put a little more glue back here. Gonna hold this in a little more effectively. You might want, in your own aesthetic preference, to hold down the tip of that or not. I like it to be a little bit, what would the word be? Irreverent is what I want to say. Not matchy-matchy maybe. So then here's kind of what that looks like. And this is what I'm talking about with the tips. You don't have to put those down unless you want to. We are going to cover that with the material that's more intended for like the dress or whatever it is that you're talking about. Okay, so we've done the inside. We've put some of the seeds to the art process of the Wild Woman. We've brought those from the meditations up and put those inside. And we're starting to do the final cover here. So the next piece is putting on this part. So I'm going to take this, and again, you can decide how much or how little you want to do. I like it to have enough so that I can cover over a couple times pretty well, or at least one good solid round of it. So we're going to cut this off here. Hopefully I've sent you enough. I try to send enough that you will have plenty and probably some left over to do this part of the process. So a strip of glue gun, that's a little bit hard to see. And then I'm going to take the fleece and I'm going to fold it into the glue gun here and just hold this for a minute. You want to make sure it starts to set up before you shift it, because what we're going to do is pull this part a little bit so that it's good and tight on there. And if it's not starting to adhere anyway, it's not going to pull. So we're going to pull it a little bit tight and wrap it around. And again, this is not an exacting science. So I'm going to put a strip under here where you see that it's not quite there. We're going to glue this down. Okay. And then we're going to glue it in the back a little bit just to make sure it stays on. Always having the good bones. Now you might be doing this another way. If you wanted to try this with yarn or some sort of other material, that works as well. Again, personal preference. Let your creativity dictate what you want. This is just sort of how I've liked to do it in the past. Okay, so as I told you before, this neck piece is part of what I like to do as well. Most of it's going to be hidden, but it's just sort of this finishing piece that I like to have. I don't like to see the wood, at least on this part. Definitely like to see the wood under the little skirt dress part. Definitely like to see the wood at the hands, but not in the front of the neck. So here's the front where I put that down. Okay. Then we're going to pull this in the back, again, securing it with glue gun as we go and really holding it on there. There's a couple layers of this. Okay. Making sense? Now this is just how mine is showing up and looking. Yours might look a little bit different, and that's okay. They don't all have to be the same. But this is the basic shape of what you should have at this point. Again, aesthetically, you decide if you want these points down. We are going to cover with more material that may or may not matter to you. And on the back, we still have this piece that's a little bit open here where you can see. You might want to lay another piece over the top of that. That's fine. You don't have to. It's not necessary. I think for today, I'm going to. I kind of like to have the whole underside covered, so you can't see like how we took the t-shirt material and twisted that on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover that real quick. Give a little glue gun in there. Cover those holes. And there you have the beginnings of your wild woman. Okay. So the second part of this, sorry, we're probably at the fourth part. The next part is to, again, taking from the meditations, we're going to look at bringing stuff forward into here. So if you have anything that you want just outside of you, so in the meditations, we talked about things that were the most inner piece of what you wanted to acknowledge, then the next level out that's maybe still only known to a certain amount of people, and then the next level out that's more what you want to show on the outside. So we're sort of at the mid-range right now. We're at the mid-level. If there's anything on here that you want to glue in, or maybe you have something like a necklace that you want to have, or a pearl that you would put in here or down below, whatever it would be, go ahead and do that at this point. And we're going to move on to the next piece, which is taking these crinoline bits and getting those onto your wild woman. So I want to show you an example of what I have done in the past. This was the very first one that I did. This is her. You might have seen her. She's floated around Pinterest and stuff before. So the part that we're on right now is under the dress here. And so I like to have sort of wild, puffy stuff happening, and I don't like it to be all nice and neatly cut and all of that. So I like it to be a little bit crazy under there. So we're going to be putting this bit of crinoline under here, right? And it's really kind of hard to see, but I'm hoping that you can see that this is kind of torn and cut and just kind of funky. And really the intention is to pump up this dress a little bit. I didn't like it when I first did it this very first time. When it didn't have the crinoline under it, it didn't have as much volume. And I really like the volume. I also like, as you guys can see, maybe, I don't necessarily like to cut things straight, or I like layers of stuff so that things hang down at different levels. And so what I'm going to show you is sticking to that kind of aesthetic. Now, if you like it differently, then please feel free to do what you think goes best for you. I'm going to put her over here. Okay. And this will be the last part of this video. And we'll do a second video here after I get this, or show you how to get this done. One of the things I do want to say is this material, just if you're feeling it right now, you can tell your glue gun's going to go right through this. So be really careful. If I burn myself, this is typically the part that I burn myself on. So what I try to do is find basically where the waist is going to be, right? The anticipation of the waist anyway. And just starting with some of the glue gun, wherever that seems to be. And one of the tricks that I've learned to not burn myself is to fold it up just a little bit and to give yourself a little bit of a space on either side, so you can, I don't know if you can tell, but there is glue gun directly under right here where I have, I'm holding this down a little bit. Just let it dry to a certain degree, and you haven't had to put your fingers on it. And then I just twist and bunch and pull tight the glue gun a little bit. and you can glue it at different levels. I think I've used up all the glue there. But see, now it's cool enough now that I can touch it and I can kind of smush this crinoline into it a little bit, but it's not going to burn me, right? So there's a little bit on my thumb, but it's not burning me. So there is the beginning of the volume that we're going to create. You may have already guessed it, but this is for the same thing. It's just a little fancier. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll come in and maybe I'll cut some of it up a little bit in random spots just to add some drama to the piece. And we're going to do this basically the same way. So move that to the side. I'll get my person with some glue gun on here. I'm going to fold and crunch and bunch up this crinoline. And even maybe you could do it at an angle. Sometimes that makes a fun look. I'm going to hold it on here for a minute. I don't know how well you can see it smushing up through there. We're just going to give it a moment to dry. And then again, quit twisting and squishing, bringing it around. I kind of like to see what happens. You might be more of a planner. But I sort of like to see what happens and how it starts to turn out. And it might be a little bit hard to see this right here, but I have all of this left. But what I think I want to do is maybe fold it like this so it puts a little more volume off to one side. And this will be covered to a great degree when we do the dress part, or what I'm calling the dress part. You might see it differently. I'm just going to stop there and glue this on. I'm going to use the tip of my glue gun at this point because I don't want to burn my hands. We're going to glue this on pretty good and let that dry for a minute. And then that'll be, whoops, not quite dry yet. Blowing on it does work. And we'll pop this on just a little bit more with my scissors. Maybe hold it a little tighter until it dries. So the glue gun is right there. And I want it to be on there pretty good before I let it go. Okay. Maybe you can adjust it. Just look at it a bit, see if you like it. I'm gonna fold this over one more time and try to get it into the glue that's already there. And hopefully you can see this, but it's got a couple of layers on here. It's a little bit funky chicken where I cut it, it's kind of rolling up on itself. And that's the kind of thing I like. I like to give it some volume. If you like it different, then please follow your instincts. This is about making it in alignment with what you like, okay? Not in the way that Mindy does it, but in alignment with what you like. All right, so at this phase, we've got the inside portion done. We've got some of the seeds that we've brought forward from the meditations. We've covered in the fleece. We've got the crinoline stuff on, both the not so funky and the funky pieces. If there's more that you want to add here, if you have your own idea for this, then please feel free. Add whatever it is that you would like to do. But we're going to stop there for now. And the next video, volume 2, we'll start getting into starting to work with the face and all the bits that go with that. And so then we'll work into attaching the face, attaching the material for the dress or the clothing of sorts, and all the other accoutrements. So that'll be part 2. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. If you're in my Wild Woman Meditation and Art class, please go to our Facebook group and type in some questions if you have any. And for now, we will end the video there and see you in a minute.